Hey, I'm Shoshana Chaim, co-host of the Plant Trainers podcast, helping you improve your quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And today I wanted to talk about one of the reasons why nutrition is so confusing. Now, when I first became plant-based, I started to think back to why did I not know what a plant-based diet was so many years ago? I had heard of the Atkins diet. How come I had never heard of the plant-based diet? A diet that is so much more natural, a diet that really just grows from the ground and is right there for so many of us in our backyards even. So then I got to thinking, well, the Atkins diet was something that was marketed, right? Dr. Atkins created it. He wrote a book. There were products to go around with it. There was money to be made. This was a business. This was not necessarily a diet. It was a business. And then the plant-based diet, I mean, it's not really a business. Nobody created it for the sake of making money. Yes, there are coaches out there who are helping you to, become more plant-based, helping you navigate through that, but it wasn't created for the sake of getting money. So what else can we look for to say, am I being tricked? Am I being duped? Am I just being marketed to? Now, just because you're being marketed to doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad, but we need to be smart consumers. So I like to think about salt, right? Salt is something that a lot of people are trying to stay away from, or sodium is something that a lot of people are trying to stay away from. And when you go into packaged food, you often see little sentences written on the food about sodium per se. So my initial reaction is once you see that a packaged food is screaming why it's good or why it's bad right there on the cover, that's a red flag. Doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, but it means that you've got to know your stuff. So let's use this marker, for example. We need to be very wary of all of the adjectives, pronouns, and verbs being used to describe this marker or to describe the foods that you are looking at in the grocery store, and how does it actually turn out as opposed to what it's saying. So if I said, this marker has more ink than most brands, all right, but is that necessarily a good thing? Right? Just because it has more, does that mean that it's going to leak everywhere? Just because it has more, does it mean that it's not going to dry up at the same time that another marker would once it's been open? So just because it has more ink doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing. If it says it has less toxins in making it, well, there's lots of rules and statutes around what we're allowed to say or what marketing companies are allowed to say when they're talking about food. So when we say less, okay, it might have less toxins. There needs to be a certain percentage less compared to the other foods or the other markers out there that are similar. But if there's this many toxins in other markers and this marker has only 20% less, that means that we still have so much more toxins in there. Is that necessarily a good thing? Does that necessarily make it good? I'm not so sure. And then we might say this pen contains ink that is easier for writing, or this marker contains ink that is easier for writing. Well, easier for who, right? Is it easier for righties and for lefties? Is it easier for children and for adults? We don't really have all of the information there, and we don't really know where that information is coming from. And then if we say this marker has reduced curves for easier writing, well, is that necessarily a good thing? Just because it's reduced, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is good for you. Is that going to be good for your fingers in the long run? So if we bring it back down to salt, it has less salt or less sodium than other brands. Again, does it actually have less that's good for my overall daily diet? Am I still going to be getting more than the sodium that I need in a regular day? That's something that you need to be aware of. If we say it contains sodium, that is good for endurance, right? Sodium can be good for endurance, but how much sodium? What kind of sodium? If we see that a yogurt says contains calcium, that's good for your bones. Well, what about all the research out there that shows that actually eating dairy calcium can leach it from your bones? Just because it has it and calcium is good for your bones doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be getting absorbed into your bones and help you to have stronger bones. So these are the types of things that we need to be responsible for. Now, I cannot expect you to know all of this information. But what I do know is if you subscribe to the Plant Trainers podcast, you download that episode every week, you start listening to our episodes and everything that's come up before, you're going to start to get this information. You're going to start to think when you're in the grocery store and you see things put out there, you're going to start to think, is this really what my body needs? Is this really what we should be eating for optimal health? These are the types of things that you're going to start to think about as second nature. So I really recommend that you go to the Plant Trainers podcast on whatever station you love to listen. So whether it be Apple Podcasts or Spotify or iHeart Radio or whatever it is that you like to use, go there and subscribe to the Plant Trainers podcast so that you could start getting all of this information. We've had a lot come out recently about Atkins, paleo, keto, where you can really understand a lot of the science behind it so that you understand if it is actually good for you, because you might be surprised that we might actually say that one of those are good within plant-based realms, but you're going to have to listen to find out. So the other thing that I wanted to say just before you go is that there's also colors in marketing that make you feel a certain way. So oranges, reds, yellows make you feel more hungry. And red is also a color that's associated with passion. So it won't just make you hungry, it will make you passionate about that product and really want that product. You know, I could think about a can that is full of sugar and bubbles, or I could think about another can that might give you energy that has a big male cow on it. They've used these colors on purpose. They've used these colors to draw you in, to make you want it, to make you passionate about it. There's so much marketing out there. The best way to navigate that is stick to the basics. Stick to your fruits, your vegetables, your grains, your seeds, your nuts, legumes. Stick to these products in the most natural state possible, and you will not have to deal with any of this marketing. Have a great day, and I will see you on the Plant Trainers podcast.